It is still morning, yeah? Good. Let's go. So, last weekend we watched History in the Making. We watched it and we all probably saw some of it, whether we saw the highlights or we saw the whole thing. And we saw it with these two disruptive leaders. Leaders and disruptive in their own way. Meghan, on the royal wedding website, it says, I am a woman and I'm a feminist. First time that's ever appeared on a royal wedding. What do we think of that? So why are these two disruptive?
If you think about disruptive, sometimes people think that disruptive is a negative thing, as in, ooh, he was really disruptive or she was really disruptive. But actually, disruptive is to not conform. And there are different ways of not conforming, but the world is changing so fast that we all need to be a bit disruptive. And if you look at them, I think there were a number of different things you could see that people were saying, wow, that's never been done before. Everything from the amazing Reverend Michael Curry to the fact that all the politicians weren't invited in the way they always were. There were a number of things they did differently as a way of saying, you know what, this is us, this is how we want to do things. So I think there's a lot we can look at them and say, wow, actually, what can I do to disrupt? What can I do to step out a little bit from what I've done before? And that's why we're here today. We really wanted to share with you some of our thoughts around what is it to be a disruptive leader? And we think that's a really positive thing, right? You may look at that and you think, oh, I've met one of them and they were nasty, right? That's not what we mean. We mean a good disruptor. How are we good disruptors? And Mandy and I, we both work as leadership strategists. We work with organizations all around the world. And we are constantly looking at what are the kind of things the future's going to need from us. What are the challenges that we see the leaders face in the world today? And we've sort of condensed down some 5 key steps for you today that we wanted to talk through. So Mandy, I know you have some experience with this picture here.
Yeah.
What can that tell us?
So this picture, I was in Rome recently, and this picture is in the Vatican. And it represents, in the inside, is the inside world and the outer world changing and coming together. So change as we see it. And as it rotates, the inside ball rotates and the outside ball rotates. And you can see a little bit of the old world and a little bit of the new world. And you sort of see the mechanics going, and it's very complex, but they start to move and shape together. So I found that really interesting. There's lots of other ways that is actually perceived and people see it. But that was what that really brought to me. And what we do when we're looking at the disruptive leader and leadership is say, well, why do we need to think about this? Why do we need to think about leadership and how is it changing? Well, the world is changing around us and the digital age is changing. So how do we need to be thinking about leadership and thinking about the different paradigms? So being agile is an important part of that. So an agile step, if we think about the world changing, we need to be agile. We need to be able to, I mean, I couldn't do some of these things, but we need to be able to flip and we need to be able to jump and we need to think about the impact we have. When I see that, I really think of the impact of being able to do that and the impact that we have by being agile, but being able to move very quickly, nimbly, and be able to shift and change and be able to move with the times faster, much faster than we have before, but being able to flex and adapt as we shift through that. There's a great quote here, you know, it's success today requires the agility to drive constantly, rethink, reinvigorate and reinvent today and into the future. So we need to be thinking about to be successful, not to be successful, but to remain successful. Just to even stay still, to remain successful, we need to be stopping and thinking. And as Vanessa said, we need to stop, reflect, and think about where am I, but where am I going? I need to be looking at today, but I need to be thinking about the future. I need to be thinking about where am I going? What's the next thing? What do I need to be ready for? And if we get into the busy bug of being into today, we've all got it's a bit of an epidemic, I think, is a busy bug is there, but we actually need to step from that and say, yes, but we're busy, we're on the hamster's wheel, we're going. But actually, what if we step off the wheel and just say, well, where are you going? Where have you come from? And where are you now? And where do you need to go? So it's thinking about that from that perspective. So if we think about this, we want to take you through the shift that's happening at the moment, which is about an old paradigm to a new paradigm with the digital evolution. So, Elisabet, what's the old paradigm all about?
So the old paradigm is, you can describe it this way. If you look back at organizations, and pretty much the way organizations have worked for the last 100 years, it's been a bit like the organization as a machine. You can look back, for example, to when they started making cars, and they started to look at how can we get the cars to be produced more quickly through the production line, where you would be sort of tinkering with little bits of improvements that would speed up efficiency, machinery. And that's how a lot of organizations have evolved over the last 100 years, very much like that, thinking we can do, if we just do things faster somehow, or more efficiently, it will work. However, there is a paradigm shift now that's been around probably for about the last 10 years, and it's picking up speed. Organizations are changing. They're no longer like machines. They're more complex than that, and we'll get to that in a moment. But the reason why it's changing is that we are seeing 4 trends that are disrupting us, that are disrupting old organizations. And the key trends here are, there's constant introduction of disruptive technology. I think we've talked about it already this morning, everything from social media to all the tools available to us. This means we can all of a sudden work and approach business or organizations in a completely different way. There's also the speed at which everyone has access to information. The democratization and digitalization of information means things are moving so much faster because everyone knows everything, right? And also, you have a quickly evolving environment. Things are changing around us all the time. People are expecting more. Customers want new things. There are other stakeholders that look at us. Everything is changing really, really fast. And also, ultimately, you have a war for talent, meaning there's a lot of knowledge jobs out there now. There's less of whatever's being automated will be automated into robots, but the work the humans do becomes more and more knowledge-based. So the war for talent, as in really attracting the right people and being able to keep them, is going to be absolutely crucial going forward, even more so than it's been.
And it's also going to be about thinking about learning to learn more. So learning cultures. So not so much gone are the hierarchical days in the old paradigm of the know-it-all syndrome, and it's actually now the learn-it-all. We need to be better at learning and at our ability to learn and opening ourselves to allow to learn, because what a statistic that's at the moment is, in a technical university, what you learn in year 1 is no longer valid by year 3. So therefore, 50% of that is no longer valid. So therefore, you have to be able to, there's not about knowing it all, it's like, how fast can I take the opportunity to learn more? Where do I get that from? And I can't have all the answers myself. Elisabet and I work together, we are peers together, we've worked together, we've written 2 books together, and we do this together, because not one of us knows all the answers. Actually, we both can, 1 and 1 equals 2, 3, 4, 5, even more than that. So it's about knowing that and being able to use that and learning from that.
So, Mandy, what about them? We know that there are organizations that are now looking at saying, okay, we need to shift. We're the old machine organizations, and we need to shift. And I know there's a study on this.
So the study is of 1,900 executives. There was a study McKinsey did around that, where 82% went through a redesign in the last 3 years, a redesign or a restructure. And of those 82%, only 23% were implemented successfully. So the rate of change and the pace of change, it needs to change again. So how many people in the room, hands up if you've been through a redesign or a reorganisation in the last year? In the last 2 years? In the last 3? So, up and down, yeah? So there's a little statistic in this room which is subtle in terms of, yes, we've experienced some of that. And therefore, as we go forward, that might happen more, which means there won't be so many redesigns and restructures. It means that the way that organisations are structured and organised means it won't be so much formally in terms of structures. It will be more blurred around the lines of hierarchy and who does what as we move forward. So the new paradigm is about organisations not as machines, but as living organisms. So if we think about that, what's that about, Elisabet?
Absolutely. So imagine living organisms. We're living organisms, right? We're able to respond very nimbly. I mean, imagine it gets colder in the room. You'll know to put on a coat if you got one with you. It's that kind of in the moment being able to respond to what happens. This is the kind of organization that we all need to move into, right? And of course, this drives a certain type of leadership. How do I need to lead in order to be able to lead in such a nimble environment? So it'd be things like the kind of things that such an organization needs to do, needs to be both stable and agile at the same time. So imagine, for example, that you have a mobile phone. You have so Mandy has here's one we prepared earlier. Excellent. Right? So the mobile phone is the hardware, right? That's the stability. And then you can add apps on it, for example. That gives you the flexibility to do with it what you wish and get the kind of use out of it that you wish. And that's the kind of way organizations need to be able to respond to things happening. And also, by having enough stability, you're allowing people to be able to act with agility because you know what's what. And all of it is a question of being able to, how do we get so nimble as an organization that we're able to respond to the kind of opportunities that appear? And that's really where organizations as living organisms are going to. So what's this one then, Mandy?
So this just demonstrates to you from the old organisations as machines is this hierarchical box where, you know, it's top-down hierarchy. It's the leader. I'm the leader, therefore you must do this. And it's taking that into having that structure and silos and I'm working on this, so I stay working on this, into more of a the other side with the organism where we work together. So the boxes and the lines are not so clear. So it's not clear that I'm going to work on this and this. Actually, we need to have teams, and then those teams get moved, and then that team gets restructured. And so therefore, as a disruptive leader, you need to think about, so the team I'm in is a team I'm in now. What's my transportable team skill set that I can take from here to here? I take it with me. I take it to the next team. So the thing that differentiates it is we're going to work together on a project, together on something, and then we're going to move on to something else. And when we move on to something else, the glue that binds it, because it might not be so clear what our boundaries are in what we're doing, will be the glue being the behaviors, how we behave, what principles we put in place that says if this is not clear, then how are we thinking about what I'm doing and what you're doing. If we've got some principles in place that are behaviours, then we can work through it that way. So it tells you that the world is shifting into that more about leadership showing the direction, but enabling the interaction and the action to happen around it. So it's more of a shared leadership perspective rather than I'm the leader and therefore I know everything and we need to be moving in this old style hierarchical way. It's much more about we need to build an end-to-end accountability to get something done. So if that's the new world, then we need to think about, well, what kind of behaviours, what kind of leadership attributes do we need, and what does that mean for us as disruptive leaders in the positive sense that Elisabet describes?
And you could put it this way, right? You only have two choices. You either disrupt as an individual or more, it's more commonly talked about as an organization. You disrupt or you become disrupted. Because the speed of change that is, if you look around, there's loads of big organizations that were disrupted by others, rather than constantly looking forward and thinking, how can we be out there and disrupting before we get disrupted? And I think this is something that's going to need to become a mantra for all of us, and for us to think about it as, how do I think differently? How do I not just conform with what I've always done and what we've always done? That's what being disruptive is all about. So think about it. How can you disrupt more? Where could you disrupt more? In a good way, right? We mean it as a positive thing. And if you think about it, leadership is both a function, but it's also very much a way of being, because everyone's a leader. Whether you're in a leadership role today or not, you are a leader. You will be leading yourself. You'll be informal leaders at times where you influence a lot of people. The third book that Mandy and I are writing on at the moment is a book about the kind of impact that you have as a leader, and it can be absolutely massive, right? So think about it. The only safe ship in a storm is leadership, right? How do we sail through those stormy, changeable times? So we want to get to the 5 agile steps then. So Mandy, do you want to take us through them?
Yeah, so this quickly, I'll take you through this, but we'll run through these in one by one. And these don't come in a particular order. They come from a series of research, and Elisabet and I working with many people over many years, and teams and individuals and leaders, and seeing what are the things that we're seeing ahead, what's the strategies we're seeing for dealing with this change in organisations. So we need to build strategic ability. So Vanessa just talked about we need to be thinking about thinking bigger. It's about thinking bigger. How do we always think bigger? Every leader we work with, we're always saying to them, right, if you want the next job, you need to think bigger. You need to behave as if you already are. So if you haven't got all the skill set, then behave as if you are. So I worked with a deputy chief exec and said, if you want the next role, then behave as if you are that role. You know, if you want to be the chief exec, behave as if you are. What would you do if you were? You're not, but what would you do if you were in their shoes? What would you be doing differently? And then behave like that. Then when it comes to it, they'll say, oh, it's obvious it was them, because look, they already do that. They already think like that. So thinking strategically, really up the game. Make yourself think bigger. Leave your ego at the door. Love that one. Leave your ego at the door. So we all have egos. We work with lots of amazing egos. Love it, absolutely love it. But this is the time for leaving those at the door, and we'll talk a bit more about that. Take your teaming and collaboration to a new level. Elisabet and I, she said, we've written 2 books on this, so we've got about 4 minutes to explain to you what that means. So that's a lot for us to do in 4 minutes, but we'll talk quickly about why you've got to up that and take that to a whole new level in the new world. And think about that stability with agility. So that phone, you know, the stable platform, but the agility that you need to work through that. And the most important one when we come to the end is we're in the digital age, but you've got to think human to human. We still people need people. We will always need that, and we will always need to think about that being a differentiating factor for us. So taking that step.
Right, so the first one then. So the first step is the strategic ability. There's 2 main parts to this. One of them is, as a leader, to be able to disrupt, you need to be very, very purpose-driven, as in, why are we doing this in the first place? Really connecting with the purpose of why the organization exists, what your role is within that, and be truly, truly passionate about this. Because I'm sure you've also experienced this. You come across someone who's really passionate about what they do, like Vanessa, for example. It's contagious, right? There's something so compelling about passion. Mandy and I have had the benefit of working for a very passionate leader. And you know what? 20 years on, it's still having an impact on us. So that passion is incredible. So that's one part of it, to become very, very clear about what you're doing and why, and making other people understand that as well. The other part is around to become very, very aware of the system you're in. We talk about this as the internal system. Really understand the organization you're in, the politics, the unwritten rules, the culture, all of those things. But also the outer world, to really be able to see what's going on. Because only when we understand the market we're in, the competitors, the trends that are happening, only then can we be ready to actually jump on the opportunities that come, you know, be really agile and act when the opportunity arises. If we're very just here doing things in the moment and not building that ability to see bigger, which is very much of a strategic skill, we're not going to see the opportunities when they come. Yeah? What about this then?
So this one, leaving your ego at the door, is because it's going to, you know, we've heard this morning about being authentic and allowing yourself to be who you really are. And sometimes when we're going through shifts and changes, the know-it-all syndrome is gone. It's now the learn-it-all. So we have to, if someone else has our idea or we influence somebody so much that they come up with it, we need to really think of that as a superb compliment, which means you're going to leave your ego at the door. We're also working with a couple of organisations at the moment who are going through mergers and acquisitions, and we're coming together of 2 companies, and how do we do that? And they're having to work with people who used to be their competitors. So they used to be in competition with them, bidding for things, and suddenly they're working together with them. So that means you have to leave your ego at the door and share more of what you know. Share it openly and be bold about that, and be bold in the collaboration. And they're daring to speak up. So to leave your ego at the door means I'm going to dare to speak up, like Vanessa said. I'm going to dare to say this, but it means that my ego might get a little bit battered if it doesn't go quite the way I want it to go. But I need to let go of that.
Absolutely. And something we're seeing more and more, and if you're not doing it already, start thinking in these terms. The kind of bold collaboration that you're going to need to be doing is to really go beyond where you've been before. How do you collaborate with competitors? How do you collaborate with, if you're in a financial services, what kind of non-profit organizations might you need to collaborate with? Who are the politicians you need to collaborate with? More and more and more of that is coming along and needs a different way of thinking. So this one then, the third one is about teaming and collaboration. Now, we always achieve more together with other people than we can ever achieve on our own, right? Sometimes we also get very comfortable in our teams. Oh, I like you, we worked together for ages, you know, it feels really good there. But actually, the future of teaming is we're going to need to be much more open than that. We're going to need to be able to swiftly move into different constellations of teams. And to promote that kind of new reality, that this is what teaming is now, we are going to need to open up and create more and more fluid team as we go along is important. You know, the kind of role mobility, I'm doing this now, I may need to do something else tomorrow. I may even want to. I mean, how exciting to not just have to do the same thing I've always done. And also then to empower your team, to really make sure that you have a kind of learning that happens across the team. Diversity is one of the best things when it comes to learning. The more diverse a team you have, the more people can learn from each other. So really empower people and encourage people to have that kind of exchange with each other.
So should we have a go at that?
Absolutely.
So in your round tables, person next to you, just think about what have you read, seen, learnt this week that tells you something about the world is changing, and therefore, you know, what you need to do to just keep up but stay ahead as a future leader. What would be great to share that you've learnt with your neighbour? So turn to the person next to you and have that conversation for a couple of minutes at your table. Off you go. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for trying out that step. Let's jump on to the next one. We can keep those conversations going. You want to talk about stability and agility?
Absolutely. So stability, again, as we introduced a little bit earlier on, is just saying, how can I give enough stability so that people know what to do and are able to act in an empowered way? So sometimes people, for example, have so many tools that sometimes they don't know which tool to use. Should I be emailing this? Should I be doing this on the intranet? Should I be messaging this? Having a clarity around how you work allows people to not have to ask for permission when opportunities arise to move in an agile way. So it becomes therefore a much easier way to work. Enough stability so that you can move with agility. And then this last one then.
And this one really is about the human-to-human aspect. So remember, in the digital world, people need people, and this is where the behaviours come in. So thinking about inspiring, caring, and engaging, and thinking about how you want to be. So if you want to be inspiring, be inspired yourself, and think about your connection with others. It's not all about the digital evolution.
No, and it's not just business to business or business to consumer. It's actually human to human, right? And we're going to need that more than ever before.
This one we love, it says it on the tin, but you know, if you want to change something, you change it at a behavioural level. You can put actions in place, but the differentiating factor is the way you behave. That's how you create transformational change, not just change with a tick box.
Absolutely. So we are living in what's called the VUCA world. There is volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity all around us, and that's okay, right? So I think if there's one advice to give, is just to say, embrace that all you can. It is what it is. We don't need to have all the answers. We can move with that. Mm-hmm. So,
5 steps. If you want to have a look at it, take your phone out, take a picture. The 5 steps are there just to say, there's 1 or 2 of those might speak to you, but there are 5 steps that you can take to move into the digital world.
And in closing up our session, we'd like you to get your phones out, and we want you to go to menti.com. Menti.com. So everyone who's got their phones with you, we're going to do a quick little vote here and say which one of these 5 agile steps that we've talked about do you think is most important for you to develop or learn more about? What do you really think is important for you? So go to menti.com, use that code, and then we're going to see what votes we're getting in. Exciting. Cool, yeah.
Got some votes?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Isn't it fun to see it go like this?
Very interactive, very digital, isn't it? Cool. Oh, I love it.
What do you think the most popular one is? Cool.
Yeah, nice to see. If there's something we encounter a lot is that there's not enough of strategic thinking in leaders, right? So it's really exciting actually to see that there are so many votes on that at the moment. It's not like we think that's more important, but we know that that's one that's often forgotten about in the day and here and now, daily stuff.
And not many people want to leave their ego at the door. That's pretty
Well, we're already good at doing that, right?
Yeah, we can always do it. We're already doing that. Yeah, and a little bit of the teaming, taking that collaboration to a new level. But the strategic ability is rocking up.
Yeah. Excellent. So keep voting on that one. We want to afterwards, if you haven't done it yet, we want to follow up afterwards and see what there were. But in closing in that, just thank you so much. You are the disruptive leaders. Well done.
Go for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
For your time.